Greetings, Culturians, and welcome to the box office roundup for the week ending March 17th. It's a happy St. Patrick's Day if you happen to catch this on Sunday or Monday. I hope you enjoyed yourself and stayed safe. Now, the box office has been kind of mostly missed since the beginning of the year, and it's because there haven't been a lot of great films that have come out. Outside of Dune, there wasn't a lot to look forward to in the months of January or February. And now that we're several weeks into Dune, which is doing okay with a $9 million gross for the weekend, it looks like it has displaced Kung Fu Panda as the #1 film in the United States, which is surprising because I would have expected Kung Fu Panda to hang in there a little bit more. And it looks like Mark Wahlberg's new film, Arthur the King, has dropped down to a small number, which we'll get to in just a moment. So buckle up, folks. Let's talk movies and, well, potential movies on the horizon. Here we go. Of course, it would be silly of me not to start with a reminder that we are on our way to 25,000 subscribers and aren't that far away right now. So if you're one of the 60% of folks that are seeing my channel for the umpteenth time and are still not subscribed, please make today the day that you help me get to that magical number. All you have to do is click on the red button that says subscribe, turn it to gray, and it's that easy. It's absolutely free, and outside of maybe having to create a YouTube account, that's all that's required. Then, if you turn on notifications, you won't miss a single one of my videos to talk about, well, very strange things, or stranger things, or a whole lot of other things, because that's what I do. And I also see some terrible movies so you don't have to. Like, for example, this last weekend I saw the American Society of Magical Negroes, which had probably one of the most disappointing releases you could have expected at $1.25 million. In other words, $1,250,000 for a domestic opening. Now, that doesn't sound like a lot of money. It really isn't. It opened in such an embarrassing fashion that you would have expected it to be on a lot less than 1,000 screens. Well, it wasn't, and its average was absolutely terrible at $227 per theater. Yikes. Of course, we had some other newcomers that showed up, including Lionsgate's Arthur the King, which is a really interesting movie, I guess loosely based on some events that actually transpired about a adventure bicycle race that was essentially led by a dog. And I haven't had a chance to see it yet. I'll see that later today, but I'll have a review for it coming up, and a reason why it earned a grand total of $7.5 million in the theaters, which is disappointing after a $3 million opening, but I don't think there was enough publicity for this film unless you had been going to see other movies. Now, of course, as I mentioned up front, Kung Fu Panda 4 came in second place for the week, rocking a $107,744,000 total to date domestic on a pretty decent weekend overall. And of course, #1, once again, is Dune Part 2, which came in with a substantial growth and is currently domestically over $205 million. Now, this film needs to get much, much higher, so hopefully it can hang on to the #1 spot for a few more weeks. Although, for how much longer, that's questionable, because we do have some films coming out. What's surprising is, despite all of the movies combined adding together to somewhat of a disappointing weekend, it was only about $92.4 million in domestic return overall, which surprisingly is actually right within the same number that it was last year at this same time, when you had things like Warner Brothers' Shazam! Fury of the Gods and a few other things that were around at the same time. We've got kind of a big weekend coming up because Ghostbusters, the Frozen Empire, is expected to come in at about $47 to $52 million in box office returns next weekend, so if you haven't got your tickets, you probably want to now, although that number may be a little disappointing to some. Another not surprising disappointment this last weekend was the film Love Lies Bleeding. It's a lesbian love mystery murder something, I don't know, and probably won't see it at all anyway, but Kristen Stewart is the lead in this, and her obviously publicity blitz didn't really turn a lot of people on to this particular film. It fell off precipitously over its initial opening and is averaging about $435 per theater. In total, on its opening weekend, it's about $2,700,000 in domestic earnings, and I'm not sure it's going to rise much higher considering its Sunday take was less than $600,000. And as I said, there are a lot of films coming up here rather soon. You have Ghostbusters Frozen Empire, as I mentioned, which is going to not do all that great in theaters based on projections, sitting around a domestic high-low range of about $125 to $130 million in total earnings. If it comes in that low, I'm not sure we'll get another Ghostbusters film. Disney's re-releasing Luca on the 22nd of the month, and I'm not sure that's going to go all that well. And since a lot of people would have already had an opportunity to see this on streaming, I'm not excited for this to enter the market. The following weekend, we get even busier. We get Asphalt City, which is probably a film you've never heard of, and Godzilla x Kong, The New Empire, which I think will perform very well, coming in at about $56 to $65 million in domestic opening weekend. It's going to exceed overall domestic box office of $150 million, probably a little bit more than that. And I think that'll start to propel people's interest in the theaters again. I'm just not sure that that'll be enough money to make another Godzilla movie, although the international markets seem to favor that. We've got a couple of other films coming up as we get into April, including The First Omen, which doesn't have a lot of buzz behind it, should have a pretty soft opening, but the blessing there, is that it is opening as a horror and didn't cost all that much money. Horror movies make a lot of money as compared to what their costs are. Also opening on April 5th is a film that I'm looking forward to. It's the rated R ultra-violent film Monkey Man, which I suspect, coming from Universal Pictures, will open to right about where Box Office Pro has it, somewhere between 16 and 25 million on its opening weekend. I do expect it to do a little more than Box Office Pro in total earnings by the time it leaves the domestic box office at about $100 million. Now, that's based on what I expect initially, which I think it'll exceed the 25 million domestic open, but it also is the fact that I think it's going to run for a while because there's not a lot else out there to draw the male audience in, aside from a Civil War movie that comes out the following week on April 12th that isn't going to perform particularly well. And one amazing thing that we have to look forward to is Guy Ritchie's movie right towards the middle of April. Probably need to go out and escape your tax season deadline. But The Ministry of Ungentlemanly Warfare. And of course, we all know our favorite actor, Henry Cavill, will be leading an all-star cast in that movie, and boy does that look great. It's not expected to have a great box office, at least as far as the open, between 6 and 10 million, but I think those numbers are too pessimistic, and I think that those numbers track up and we end up with a $20 to $25 million opening box office weekend, especially if we see good numbers coming out of Monkey Man the week or two before. And ultimately, that film should domestically do somewhere around $40 to $42 million in its entire run here in the States. I imagine you take that money, add it to the international numbers, and it's going to actually make money, which would be great, especially for Henry Cavill. On that note, just to wind up, we have a film that opened at number 8 that I had to see. Do check it out, it's right up there. It's called The American Society of Magical Negroes, and it is a film you should never see. On that note, be sure to take care of yourself, take care of others, and until next time, see ya.